Network.
All right, this is rolling. Perfect. Hello. Another installment of the Valhalla Movement podcast, and I've got a beautiful guest, somebody who is beautiful in the heart as she is physically as well, and she seems to be always doing something that's just interesting and piquing people's interest online and offline. You know what I love? And I told you this just before we started this recording, that every time I talk to you, you're outside, which I love that. Her name is Marina Love, and I'll get into who she is, what she does, why she's a guest on the podcast, more so than the fact that she's awesome. But before that, I want you guys to do me the quickest and easiest favor. If you are listening to this right now, if this is coming into your earlobes and changing where you are in your life, and if you think that this might be of value to you at any point when you're listening or at this exact instant, please click the like button, comment down below if this is Facebook or YouTube or iTunes, rate this podcast, whatever, anything. Any small little action will help. It really goes a long way. And also go and like anything that Marina's doing. We'll give you the links. All those links are going to be in the description. I'll put her Facebook, her websites, all that kind of stuff. She's doing some awesome stuff. She's going to blow your mind. So without any further ado, Marina, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Mark. It's such a pleasure to be here and to connect with people who are really marching towards the sustainability of this planet.
Yeah. I mean, it is, I like that you use the word march, because that's kind of what it feels like, right? It kind of feels like we're kind of gearing up for this fight or this real journey, and we've got our backpacks on, and we're trying to collect as much information and as many recruits as possible to be a part of it. And it seems like something that you're involved with. I know I've been following for a while, Goddespreneur, or the GoddespreneurAcademy.com. And it seems like all of these things that what Valhalla is doing, they're all just mixing together with all the other people and what they're doing, and it's just kind of changing the culture, right? We're changing the times slowly but surely. And I'm just so happy to even be able to run a podcast like this, to be able to connect with people like you and with just anybody who's actively being a part of that change. So, I mean, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about your story? Where does this all come from? Where did your path begin? What was that catalyst moment maybe that shifted your life into where you are now and what you believe now, what you do now?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, I started off being very sick. I was a model and a professional dancer for many years. Mm-hmm. And I was always geared towards more of the holistic path because of my mother. And
comes from somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And my mother was always this witchy woman who was always crafting different potions and making different remedies. And she really inspired me. And when I got sick, I realized that I had to make a decision. And that decision that I was about to make was going to be or not to be. Mm. And, I suffered from a multitude of eating disorders, from bulimia to anorexia to binge eating disorder. I've had them all. I've experienced the emotions that is associated with each one. And, wow. It's not a nice place to be in, but it's through that darkness that I actually realized what my mission was. And I realized that, me being on a set or me being in a photo shoot or someone seeing me in a picture, it doesn't necessarily change lives. Mm. What does change lives is someone who can teach people sustainability.
I mean, I agree. Yes. But I mean, and you're totally right. It does make a lot of sense to think about the fact that you're right. These things can change a purchase decision, or they might influence maybe the next makeup we buy, or the next thing that we're in an article of clothing that we might choose to consider. But it doesn't fundamentally shift who we are inside, and that's kind of more that higher purpose that you seem to be kind of alluding to, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I just realized that this is not my purpose, and obviously I'm being pushed towards, I'm basically being pushed towards a wall with myself where I'm having to discover more of what I'm here for, and it was through that darkness that I found the light. And I realized, like I was interested in holistic health and holistic nutrition, and so it was shortly after that darkness that I discovered David Wolf.
Mm.
And I started studying his program at the Body Mind Institute, and it blew my mind. Like, it was just so expansive and rock star. And then through learning about him, I met Daniel Vitalis.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, Dr. Brian Clement, like all of these superheroes in this health movement. And I really realized that, I needed to have my portion of spreading this knowledge as well, because I know what it's like to be down there. I know what it's like to not know what the heck you're supposed to do in this world. I know what it's like to feel in a certain way. And aside from all that, I was really bullied in high school pretty severely. And I just didn't understand how, and it was by women. And so I really didn't understand how women could be so cruel towards one another, how humanity could be so cruel towards one another.
Mm.
And then through my eating disorders, I just realized how disconnected I was. And I was like, Jesus, I need to connect to this earth. I need to get as many people as possible to get connected to this earth, because we've forgotten so much of our innate superhero qualities that are just innately within us,
Yeah, I
And,
fully understand that.
and I mean, like, this journey of mine just took so many different shapes. I mean, I started with nutrition. I started getting into metaphysical sciences and the quantum theory, through the workings of Dr. Nassim Haramein. I went in all different tangents. I even started making raw chocolate in the process because, if you want someone to change their diet, you don't give them a salad. You hand them a dessert,
That is true. No, it is a better selling point. I give you that much.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
you went through all of these things, and now you're emerging into, I mean, obviously Goddespreneur or something, but tell us a little bit more where you're at today. Like, where is this kind of manifesting? How is this happening today?
Yes, well, what a crazy journey it has been, and where it's manifested itself to now is that I've transitioned myself and transformed myself into more of a spiritual psychotherapist, where I am using a cellular restructuring program, because the Vedic Upanishad said that the subtle energy of food becomes your mind. And I feel
You
like
are what you eat, right?
exactly. And I feel like, because I suffered from eating disorders, I totally know what it's like to have parasites in the body, to just have something totally hosting you that's not even you. And so I realized that, in order for us to really get people into that mindset of sustainability, we need to give them that cellular restructure. And so through working with the cellular restructure, we diminish and we actually help to prevent different mind disorders and different ailments, different diseases as well.
Oh,
And
wow.
so this is where I'm working now, and I'm really being called into this work, whether I want it or not.
So so you just described like a fairly incredible timeline.
Yeah.
How long of a timescape was that? So like when did you discover David Wolf, and when, like, how, like, I mean, obviously it's a transition. It's not overnight, right? It's like
Yeah.
you see something here and then you see something there, and then it's just like, oh wait, and you start self-examining and you dive deep and you realize your story and you start seeing more clarity, and you navigate through a whole bunch of stuff, and then you get to where you are today, right? And so when did that start? What was around, give or take, that timeline?
Yeah, this was about 10 years ago.
Oh wow, David
Yeah.
Wolf was killing it 10 years ago, really.
No, like, well, I mean, it was 10 years ago that I went on the journey of self-discovery and health. And it was a few years after that that I discovered David
David
Wolf. So
Wolf,
not
okay.
quite 10 years.
Not okay.
But I did pick up his book, Eating for Beauty,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
really inspired me to share a lot of that wisdom with people at the time. But I didn't have a certification or anything like that. So I was really like hush hush about what I was doing. And then I started to study with him. So this is a 10-year spectrum.
Wow.
This is from the time, like, I'm 28 now, so this was when I was just about 18 that I started going through this process of expansion and evolution and discovery. And
Well, that seems to be a prime age for when these kind of things start to happen, right? Like, we're coming out of high school. We're trying to figure out our lives. We're trying to figure out like what's going on, what direction we should be taking, and then that's all of a sudden like maybe the internet starts swirling around a little bit at that time 10 years ago, right? So all of this info is starting to kind of like shape shift our consciousness, and even me 10 years ago, okay, I was slowly but surely starting to learn a couple of things, and I didn't know nearly anything of what I know today. And I've had David Wolf as a guest on this podcast. I've had Daniel Vitalis as a guest on this podcast twice. These people are transformational. Like, they really are. Like, I get why these guys were able to like just radically shift your perspective, and send you down a kind of a different path through, number one, their teachings, or anything you might have stumbled across is very, very, very different. And I love them for it. So shout out to those guys. But
Yes.
but I'm happy to see that you're coming out of that darkness, or you came out of that darkness, and now you're stepped into the light, as you said. So somebody who's listening to this clearly is probably going to resonate with your story, right? Whether it be an eating disorder, or whether it be the fact that they're starting to discover this new ideas surrounding nutrition or beauty, or I don't know, metaphysics, or whatever, any of these topics, okay? They're going to resonate with some small piece of that story in some way, shape, or form, or a whole lot of it. And
Yes.
I'm putting you on the spot here. Quick thing for somebody to like. What is it that you think that somebody can do right now that will help them kind of go down that path? Or what is a small piece of advice that you would give to somebody who'd be like, is on that path, but is still teetering along the edge, and it doesn't want to jump off the cliff, or, is making excuses? Like, what do you tell that person?
I tell that person that it's all about choosing simple shifts that last a lifetime. You never want to jump in headfirst into anything, because that's not sustainability, right? Sustainability is something that's created over time. And so I'm all about, in my practice, I work with people's strengths. So we build on pleasure, essentially. And we also just take small little shifts that will essentially last a lifetime. So for someone who's really like unsure of themselves in this moment, I would say go outside, take off your shoes, plant your feet into the soil, and just breathe for a few moments and sit with yourself. And you will be amazed at the kinds of things that come up when you have those moments of solitude. And I mean, nowadays we're walking around wearing shoes. We are so disconnected from that healing frequency of the earth.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable when you're grounded opposed to when you're not grounded. The difference of the clarity of thought that you have, even your energy level, your energy levels. You can tell that mine are a little bit off kilter today. Maybe I'm a little too high from being out here. I don't know, but it really affects your ability to function. And I feel like, we've just been so domesticated, as Daniel Vitalis says, to a point where, we're not really living in our innateness anymore as human beings. And that's what drew me towards the Valhalla movement, because I was trying to find alternative ways of living. And I was just like, I live in a house, and I don't know how I feel about that, because this house doesn't produce, it's not producing plants for me unless I plant them myself. What if it could be a solarium, or like, have its own water and this and that? And I started researching, and then, wait for it, I came across Valhalla.
Yay! Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I'm so happy to be in any way, shape, or form part of like people who are looking for the solution, because that's what Valhalla is all about. And it seems like what you're teaching and what you're doing is finding that solution and trying to simplify it down into like the easiest bite-size kind of format, right? Like, I mean, that was exactly your advice, and I love it. You said, don't dive in head first, even though I will say something like that sometimes. Every once in a while, I'll say, like, you have to dive in, you have to commit.
Yeah.
But
well,
nonetheless, how you commit to it is slowly but surely shifting your life. The same applies to sustainability in, like, your home. Well, why not think about the sustainability of your body, of your mind, of your spirit, right? Like, make those small fundamental shifts that do last a lifetime, because that is basically the definition of sustaining, right? Yep. Sustaining is not like, I'm not sustaining myself for a day. I'm trying to sustain myself for a long period of time. I don't know how long that period of time is going to be, but that's part of the beauty. But the idea is that generally, ideally, it would be a longer period of time, and that you got to do things that are going to carry forward. What is the highest value thing that you can do that's going to give you the most amount of pleasure, but also continue to pay your bills and live the life that you want to live, make sure that you maintain a level of health and happiness and all of that kind of stuff, right? So
Yes.
there's a balance to life, and sometimes it's hard to find, and there's no shame in admitting it. Like, even now, personally, like, people are asking me, like, oh, you seem like you have everything together, or like, oh, it seems like Valhalla's doing so well, and I'm like, well, it is. Like, there are tons of great things that are doing phenomenal with Valhalla, but there's things in me that every once in a while I'm like, shit, like, I'm addicted to my work, or I'm addicted to the progress of my work.
Me
and
too.
like, the to-do list is just, it never ends, and
Yeah.
I can't, and I'm like, wait, but I could do one more thing, or oh, should I be going to bed now? I could have done that, or whatever. And like, there's a sickness to that too. You know what I mean?
Yes, there is.
But nonetheless, like, even though that is a sickness to some degree, and it does cause turmoil in my life at times, and or tires me or drains me, it does kind of add to my quality of life nonetheless, because I am following my highest purpose. I am doing the things that I want to do at the end of the day anyway. And the only reason I am, like, how many people have a to-do list that they want to actually get done? Well,
Yeah.
it seems like only entrepreneurs are kind of like really, or mainly entrepreneurs and people who work for themselves or do their own thing or are following their highest purpose have that to-do list that they really want to do. Somebody who has a 9-to-5 is just doing it for the cash and doesn't really care to be working there and switches jobs every once in a while. Like, they're in a different, it's a different thing. It's not to say that you can't have a 9-to-5 and enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. Like, people, I'm sure that somebody who's listening to this is like, shit, man, he really bashes 9-to-5 sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's not true. I'm just trying to say that if your 9-to-5 isn't your higher purpose, then yes, that's going to hurt you in the long run. Like, you might be able to do it for now, but it's not going to be what's going to continue to persist and carry you forward in the future. Is there a trick to knowing what your higher purpose is, in your opinion? Like, I get asked this all the time. My answer is, ask yourself good questions. Like, ask yourself why you're doing something, and then see if you like that answer, and then continue to ask yourself why you do what you do, and really focus on the why. But is there something that you've kind of come across? Is there something that resonates with you that kind of spews that out of someone?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting because the sacred why is very important as well. But what's also interesting is, often if you just tune into what others are saying about you, like people that you care about, obviously, sometimes you can pick up your purpose from there. Like, for example, when it came to myself, I was making these raw chocolates, and everyone was saying, oh, you should sell them. You should sell them. They would be such a good sell. And, you could share that love and that healing benefit of the chocolate to people. And I just kind of brushed it off. I was like, no, you crazy. Like, I don't want to be a chocolatier. I want to help people get into themselves. And, but my mother, she was just like, well, that's a catalyst for that. And so I started to tune into the messages of other people. And it's sometimes those subtle hints that can really have so much significance. Like, you might encounter a few people that might tell you the same thing. And then it gets you to question yourself, and you're just, you sit there and you're like, you know what, maybe I should do that. Maybe that's just universe speaking through these people. Maybe that's just source speaking through these people telling me that I should do that. And I'll share with you also that as a result of me making the chocolate, it did, and it was a catalyst for more of that human potential potentiator that I wanted to come through.
Yeah.
It was the catalyst of all that. It was through listening to those subtle hints from others. And this is not the other way, as you know, like, there's many, many ways to discover. Like, I think it's to start with the why first and foremost. That's the most important thing. But if you're starting with the why and you're still kind of like second guessing yourself, just tune into what others are saying. Because you can find some pretty interesting ideas there, especially if they're repeating themselves.
And so, like, I even now have kind of, I don't want to say moved away from the why. The why is number one for me.
Yes.
But asking yourself questions, like, even write a little questionnaire for yourself, or that you would ask to a friend, and then fill it out for yourself, right? Like, think about the advice that you give to someone, no matter what position you're in. You're always going to give them, like, it seems like we're always great at giving advice, where we suck at, like, giving our own, right?
I know.
Yeah, no kidding. So, that being said, nonetheless, if you write those advice pieces down or those questions that you would ask down, and then kind of write that advice down, then read it and be like, put yourself back in your person and be like, oh, wow, this is exactly what I should be doing. And the truth is that the only thing standing between you and that at that moment is then going to be the fear, right? That's the next step. It's like, shit, but I don't know. How am I going to pay my bills doing this? How am I going to get, like, how am I going to make a living? Or how, like, I can't just quit my job right now. I have this and that. And what about my friends at my work or whatever?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but, like, what is really more scary? Is like, for me, it's more scary to not do my higher purpose.
Yes.
Because I know that I'm like, shit, I'm going to ask myself the world's biggest question.
Yeah.
What if? What if I had done this? Or what if I had done that? And at least if I try it, whether it works, whether I end up where I want to be or where I don't want to be or whatever, it doesn't matter because I won't ask myself what if, because I will have done it. I will have experienced it. And no matter what, you always learn, right? It's like, you take a leap of faith, you fall down, smack your head. Well, guess what? You're like, okay, well, I learned that maybe I can't jump that far, or maybe that's not the direction I need to go, or whatever. Like you will always find, even in the worst of scenarios, you'll find a positive out of it in the end.
Totally.
But your chance of opportunity to gain so much ground is so worth it every time. Like anytime I've ever had a limiting belief of like, even small things, like we want to do a welcome desk for Valhalla. We have to raise, we're going to try and raise the money through Green Seed and through our own crowdfunding platform, right?
Okay.
Now, somebody's saying, I want you, we need to order some of the materials to do it next year now. And they're like, can you give me the money right now? And I'm like, well, okay, I guess I can give you like the $10,000 out of my bank account to go and do this. But there was like a little part of me that's like, should I really do that? Should I really do that? Maybe I won't get it back. And the truth is,
critter mind.
What?
The critter mind.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely. And so, but the truth is that I will if I believe in it, and if I stick to it, and if I just keep at it, and I keep saying, hey, I believe the welcome desk is the next thing Valhalla needs, and here's why, and here's why, and here's why, and I really promote the why, as opposed to promote my fear within me. Even if I don't project it out, but even within me, it will destroy the plan. It will destroy it from ever happening if I don't first accept it and realize that it is potential within myself. And it sounds, some people might think, oh, like that's, it's not like, is that the, it's the secret, right?
Yeah.
Is intending really enough? Well, trust me, if you intend it, you're going to start figuring out how you're going to do it too. Like nobody just intends and then just leaves it there on the shelf. Once they intend it enough and truthfully, and they really believe in it, you're going to start figuring out where all those doors are and how to open them with the keys that you have with you, right? I mean, you must have experienced things like that. Like,
absolutely.
It's not like you knew you were going to be where you were going to be in 10 years ago.
Nope, no clue.
That's the whole point.
I just, you know what? I have this saying, and it's trust it, feel it, believe it, achieve it. You just have to trust it. You've got to believe it.
Feel it, believe it, achieve it.
And you will, without unwavering faith. And I think it was Terence McKenna who said something about, when you jump into the abyss, you realize that you're landing on a feather bed. And essentially, that's been a really big statement in my life, because in the beginning, when I first started out without a 9-to-5, being an entrepreneur, there was a lot of fear in my life, and I was really scared. And one day something just occurred to me, and I just sat there and I was like, you know what? The how is none of my business, because I understand the magnetism of the mind. And when we're in fear, it's actually been scientifically proven that it lowers our IQ.
Yeah.
And so if our IQ is lowered and we're staying in that state of fear, then we don't have that zest and vigor and that to get things done. And we don't even have the inspiration to get things done because our IQ is lowered. Our body is just like not able to craft out what it is that it's meant to do. And I always feel like we can be divinely guided. We totally can, through our own intentions. And it's all about the biology of belief.
100%. 100%.
Powerful. And it's not even about just thinking positive thoughts, because I feel that my own personal opinion is that, thinking positive, I feel that The Secret has done more damage by telling people to just think positive without giving them an actual basis for it.
Yeah.
And essentially, we need to demonstrate. So for example, if I want to achieve something, I need to demonstrate. And what that demonstration includes is just having unwavering faith that I will achieve it and it will come to me. Like, for example, if I need to invest in more training to become a better spiritual psychotherapist, and that training is $8,000. I'm just going to go do it because I know that as a result of investing in that training, it's actually going to raise my vibration. It's going to teach me new skills, and it's going to make me more magnetic towards, what it is that I would like to accomplish having those teachings.
Yeah.
And I feel that far too often people are just held back by circumstance. And, I love this joke. I'm going to do it again, but who's that? Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee said, to hell with circumstance, I'm about creating opportunities. And when you think about Bruce Lee and his legend and, his legacy, essentially,
Unreal.
He created a form of martial arts that didn't even exist. It was his own. And it was through just pushing through the barrier all the time, like not giving into circumstance, that he was able to create that.
Yeah.
And this is what I love to do with my clients, is I love to take them through a process, which is an alchemical journey. And I say alchemical because essentially we're transmuting someone from where they are to so much further. And I take them through this process of, just not giving into circumstance. So we look at all the things that are circumstance in their life, and then we go through a process of defining whether this is actually true or not. And it's amazing because 9 times out of 10, everything on that list is not true.
Of course.
Not any of it, because we're capable of creating so much just through our intention, just through that demonstration. It's incredible. And I feel like, just Valhalla alone, like what you guys are putting into this intention pool and what's actually manifesting within the last 5 years that you've had this project off the ground?
2
years. Oh my God. Okay. 2 years. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Even 5, that would have been unbelievable. Now, mind blown, like it's just crazy. And it was because you started with the why, and the how just keeps revealing itself. You kept having people show up in your reality that ended up, orchestrating more of your vision for you and your team.
To boil it down to the simplest of examples, and I'll take an example that literally happened this weekend. Okay, we're building this solar shed. And I can talk about why we're building it and all that kind of stuff. We're building a solar shed to power the land. We need things on the land. When I first planted that first tree in the Valhalla ground, did I think, hey, we need to build a solar shed? No, I didn't. But I knew that eventually we would get to the point where we could be considering solar energy and blah, 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 and energy in some way, shape, or form. And I trusted that when I planted that tree that we would eventually get there when we needed to be there. But that being said, we were going to install the roof for the solar shed like that day, okay? And we were making it out of recycled material that I went to the scrapyard. I ended up finding this beautiful, perfect roll, 18 inches wide of like perfect galvanized steel, like literally untouched, like as if it was just out of the factory, 100% perfect. It's flat. We can put it on the roof, like we can cut it, all that stuff. It was great. And so we're on the land, and I was kind of dreading not doing the roof because I've never installed a roof before, and I had never really cut metal before in that way, at least not metal like that, and I was just like, man, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and so I just trusted that we would figure it out, and so we went out there and we measured it, and we're like, okay, this is how long it's gonna be. We started cutting it, and as we were cutting it and finishing cutting it, and we're gonna go and install it, this tin worker who literally does this for a living shows up, and he's like, hey, I do this kind of stuff for a living, and I'll help you drill the holes, and we'll install it. And I'll be like, I was just like, wow. And at the end of the day, he didn't even really do all that much to help us. Like, he helped us, don't get me wrong. But yeah, at the end of the day, I was still up there, the one drilling it, and so was he. But I was still doing it, even though I didn't know what the path was. I didn't really know how to do it. I had an idea, and we just tried it. And I think if you start, one of the things I find is really important is for people to understand that whatever they do isn't finite. Like, it's not, it's like, just because you did it one time doesn't mean you're going to do it for the rest of your life. If you have this job right now, doesn't mean you have to stay at that job right now for the rest of your life. And people can easily see that in any other scenario where it's more normal, right? Like, oh, I work at this whatever job I work at, I can quit and I can go and find another job at another place. And the truth applies to everything. You can take that leap, and if you totally doesn't work out or it's not where you want to be, it doesn't mean that you're stuck there. You could just take another leap to the next place. Like,
Yeah.
understand that by trying, you will figure out more about yourself and what you do or don't want to do too. Right?
Exactly.
Like, there are certain things in Valhalla that I just don't care about in the same way that I care about other things in Valhalla. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm more, I want to be on the ground. I want to get things done physically, and I also want to do a lot of online stuff and marketing and that kind of stuff. So
Yes.
that's what I spend most of my time doing. I am not necessarily the guy who wants to take the meeting notes down or who wants to work on creating the community potlucks and events and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I'll show up, but it's not what I want to do. And it's not because I don't like community. It's just that that's not my highest purpose. It's not what I do best. And
Yeah.
by trying what I can, and by trying to push that comfort zone, and by eliminating what you were doing, that process of like, eliminating all the things that are basically untrue,
Yeah.
you start to see the real possibilities of what you're able to do, and realize that at one point in your life you didn't know how to ride a bike. At one
Yeah.
point in your life you didn't even know how to use the toilet, but now
Yeah.
you do, and you learned it. And so anything that you've learned before, you can potentially learn anything new as well. If somebody knows something in this world, it's because they learned it, and if they learned it, then so can you.
Yeah, absolutely. We live in a land of portals of possibilities, as I like to call them.
Oh wow,
They're
I love
literally,
your terminology for this. This is great.
I'm very witchy.
It's okay. I like it. It's a unique angle, and I think there's a lot of people who resonate 100% with that. I do. I think it's great. I think it's phenomenal.
Absolutely. Well, we definitely live in a portal of possibility, and you're right. Like, it's not finite; it's infinite.
Yeah.
And this means that we can just keep going and keep expanding and growing. And even when it comes to the evolution of humanity, like, I've heard in spiritual texts that the universe still doesn't know itself. The universe still doesn't know how far it can go. And it's
Wow.
true. When you look up at the sky at night and you wonder how far does this universe go? It could drive your head in knots. It could make you go crazy, So that's just like, if a client comes to me and they really don't understand and they really are looking for proof of that infinite nature, I tell them to look up at the sky. And just, you can ask yourself, how is it that goes on forever? And I don't. And not necessarily that I go on and on forever in this life, but I'm saying, like, the possibilities too are just endless. And the only thing ever getting in our way is us. The only thing ever getting in our way is our mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And once you master your mindset, it doesn't matter what happens to you. You're literally bulletproof. You're literally bulletproof, and you can just keep going and unfolding and expanding, and nothing will affect you or take away your world in the way in which it could had you not acquired that understanding.
Absolutely.
And so it's amazing. We're in a really beautiful time as well, where more people are waking up to that potential. And because we really do share the same mind, I'm not sure if you've looked into any of the information from Heart Math, but Heart Math is an institute in California.
Let's dive into it. Go for it.
Yeah. Heart Math is amazing. It's an institute in California that studied the heart.
Okay.
And basically, in a nutshell, the findings that they've come across is that when you are around other people, your heart rate syncs to theirs. So what does that tell you? If our hearts are connected, our minds must be connected as well. And in fact, I'm not sure if you've looked at any of David Wilcock's teachings.
I know a little bit more about that. I hadn't heard the heart stuff, but please explain to people who are listening.
Yeah. Well, David Wilcock is probably one of the most incredible scientists of our times. One of the theories that he came out with a few years ago, he was talking about how there was a couple inventions that were made around the same time. And so this was kind of his thesis and his conclusion tied into one about how we share the same mind.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about it, I'm like, you know what? It always seems like whatever I'm going through, other people are going through it to a certain degree, to a different angle, and as we evolve, I feel like the more people we have tuned in and turned on to synchronicity and tuned in and turned on to sustainability, I feel like we can expand that notion just through holding that within our consciousness.
I fully agree. I 100% agree. I mean, there's, I'm sure you've heard of this, and maybe you haven't, the random number generators. You ever
Yes.
heard? Okay, this is like a phenomenal story. Now I will tell it because it is so
Yeah.
so mind blowing.
It
It's
needs to be
so
told.
out there. It has to be told.
Yeah.
If you don't believe in synchronicity or you think this is some wishy washy stuff or witch stuff or whatever you want to call it, okay. The truth is that there are random number generators that are literally kind of spread around the world. Okay, they were spread by, I can't remember which university. I believe it's Oxford. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me. Okay, but they're basically now in different universities and schools or whatever around the world, and they're just randomly generating numbers completely mathematically. Right? It's just a program that's just generating number, and all of a sudden, at key moments when big international events go off or even national events happen, these random number generators start to correlate.
Yeah.
And so they're tracking these numbers, and they're tracking if there's correlation between a computer in like Israel and a computer in Canada, or a computer in America and a computer on the West Coast and a computer on the East Coast of America. Okay, and so these numbers started to correlate at key specific times where things like 9/11 happened,
Yeah. Yeah.
or if you want to take a Canadian example, when Pierre Elliott Trudeau died,
Yeah.
right? So, or the prime minister who got us our constitution and kind of freed us from Britain in a sense. Okay,
Mhm.
like when he died, all the random number generators in Canada were synchronized, and when 9/11 happened, tons of random generators from around the world started to synchronize more and more and more, and they started to correlate. And if that is not proof that there's like these number generators are going every single day all the time, okay? And
Mhm.
all of a sudden they all start correlating at one random moment when these big key events start happening. If that's not proof of our kind of sixth sense kind of connection to the universe and to our sphere of understanding and consciousness, then I
Mhm.
don't know what is.
Exactly. I'm with
Okay?
you on that one.
I
I don't
mean,
know what is.
I don't know how to prove it to you, okay? And
Yeah.
I know that they will prove it more and more and more as science elaborates, and then what we'll have is we'll always have the gaps, right? There'll always be a next gap. Like we prove one thing, so now we need to know how, like, what caused that thing now,
Yes.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. But the truth is that we're seeing more and more correlation to the fact that there is definitely kind of connections between people without ever having met, without ever really having spoken. You can have that feeling transmitted without speaking a word or without anything other than your thoughts and your consciousness. And I believe that if we're going to change the consciousness of surrounding sustainability, for and if you want to take Valhalla's mission for example,
Yeah.
that part of it is that we have to own it within ourselves and our own consciousness. We
Absolutely.
have to become more conscious, and we are going to influence other people as we do it. So if we
Absolutely.
start composting, guess what? Other people are going to start having their conscious weighing upon them and saying, shit, I should compost too. Or if
Yes.
we start changing our light bulbs, then we should change our light bulb. If we start wasting less water, then they're going to start
They're gonna
wasting
start.
less water. It's going to happen
Yeah.
because even if you want to remove that metaphysical kind of version of it, okay?
Yes.
If you remove that metaphysical version, even if you're doing it physically and just physically people see you doing it,
Mhm.
as it becomes more and more the standard, so the rest of the people who are lagging behind that standard a little bit start to catch up, because
Yeah.
a lot of people want to stay in that zone, right? In the zone of normal, or in the zone of the average culture to some degree, whether they're seeing that as in their area, their local culture, or their state, or their country, or even the world. Whatever your lens is, whatever your perspective is on how you're looking at things, that will change how quickly your culture and the culture around you changes. But the truth is that just by being more conscious about it, just by knowing about things like earth ships and different
Yeah.
possibilities and nutritional possibilities, and all of this kind of starts to change what you do slowly but surely, and it does. And if you don't believe in change, well, just look outside. I
Yeah.
mean, 10 years ago, YouTube didn't exist.
No. I don't know what we would have done.
What would we have done, right? This podcast wouldn't have been happening because we wouldn't have anywhere to broadcast it.
Yeah.
iTunes was like maybe, I think, coming out of the gate at that point, which that didn't really fully exist. The iPod was just coming out. I mean,
Yeah.
Skype, there's no way there was Skype. Like, so all of this was completely different 10 years ago. So if you don't think that we could change the world in 10 years, if you don't think that it is possible to change culture, to change reality in a short amount of time, but slowly but surely every day nonetheless, then you're completely wrong.
Yeah.
You're just not paying attention to
Yeah.
the truth around you,
To the obvious.
and to the obvious.
Yeah.
And that change is so, it's like we all want it,
Hmm.
and the only way that you can have it is by doing it every day, by changing that small little thing in your life every single day. You just change that one little thing, and you try to do one little new thing, or try and learn one new piece of information. Um, and I'm going to ask you this. I mean, I'm sure that you have that within you. Is, where do you go to learn? Like, where do you go to like research more? Like you mentioned David Wolf, Daniel Vitalis and stuff. I'm sure you still kind of check up on what they're doing, but
Yes.
where are some of the places you're learning some of these things? Like, let us in on some of your secrets as to where you're getting some of this knowledge.
Okay. Well, first of all, I have to state that when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Mm.
And so this is really metaphysical, I know. So
No, that's okay.
often I just stated my intentions. You know what? I'd like to learn a little bit more about biohacking, And then all of a sudden, Dave Asprey just comes into my awareness. So there's that, but also if I have to label off some resources, what's really wonderful is Gaiam TV.
Okay, cool.
Gaiam TV is
Never even heard of that.
incredible. Oh my gosh, you got to check it out. Just www.gaiamtv.com. There's a whole plethora of David Wilcock teachings. There's a whole plethora of sustainability and permaculture and
Wow.
just consciousness films and stuff like that. That's really expansive. And to be honest, like I haven't watched a TV in probably the last 10 years. Like I just don't touch it. And I'm into looking at a lot of different things online, and I strutted across Gaiam TV not that long ago, and it's literally been the one-stop place that I am developing and expanding my consciousness and my brain and learning a lot of new material. Prior to that, I was into a lot of books. I try to read like 3 or 4 books a week. I was pretty crazy.
Wow. Seriously ingesting.
Yeah, like I was a really intense researcher in my past. I've learned to transition over to following the pleasure path more. So this involves me spending less time with a book and more time in nature and taking hikes and just connecting to the elements a little bit more.
It's a different way of learning.
Yeah, absolutely. But Gaiam TV is where it's at. I definitely recommend everyone check it out, especially if you're really wanting to know more. You have a thirst to know more about this earth and, why we came here and what our missions are, and just even to watch something random. They've got a lot of information on there.
Absolutely. I try and watch something random all the time. I have different avenues. Like I watch a lot of Vice News.
I love Vice.
Absolutely love Vice.
Yeah, I love.
If anybody from Vice is listening,
Yo!
I want to help you guys. I want to work with you guys in some way, shape, or form, or promote you guys more. So Vice is a great place. I mean, I used to be more of like a conspiracy theorist. So I was following things like InfoWars or
Alex Jones.
Yeah, of course.
I had my day with Alex Jones too.
Yeah, exactly.
We divorced, but
Exactly. But I've moved away from that because it's very fear mongering, nonetheless, and it's not where I need my heart to be anymore. I understand what he has to say, and I don't need to listen to him to agree with him anymore. Like, there's definitely things I don't agree with, but there's definitely a lot of things I do agree with, nonetheless. So I love what he's doing. I think he's waking up people's minds. He's getting people involved in politics, which is great. Great source. The other thing I do, I listen to a lot of TED Talks. And then based on the TED Talk, whoever's speaking, I Google them, and then I go into their website, and then I find information.
You creep them and stalk them?
Yeah, of course, totally. It's stalking. This is modern day. This is everyone's stalking someone.
Oh, I'm a stalker. I'm a stalker.
Everyone's stalking someone. But look, we're learning from each other. This is a great thing. We shouldn't see it as stalking. If anything, we should say it as learning or observing. I would rather use that word. But the other places, there's small little YouTube channels that I just learned so much from, like Minute Physics or ASAP Science, where they just like teach you like the smallest little thing about like in 2 minutes or 3 minutes how the world works, or how we're on a wobble on our axis, or I don't know, how plants speak to one another, or most likely speak to one another, and stuff like, I don't know. You learn all these little things that just blow your mind, and that's not even the quality of what you need to learn sometimes. It's just the fact that I did learn that little something every day that makes me be like, cool, like this is this is only in furthering me on my path that I know that I have a value of something that I can teach to people.
Yes.
And as much as as I'm emerging, or I'm trying to emerge as a speaker and as a teacher, the real truth is that I'm only emerging more and more as a student myself. Like,
Yes.
trust me, I know that I know nothing. I know that
I know nothing. Zero, zilch. Teacher right here. Here's a confession. Open confession. I know nothing.
Yeah. The more I know, the more I realize that I don't know anything at all. Right.
Exactly.
So and that's true. Like, it's not just a euphemism or anything. It's really
true.
really true. We just need to. I guess I opened a speech that I did the other day by saying I'm addicted to learning.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yeah.
Because I am constantly consuming media or looking at things or looking even at statistics of like how the website's doing and who looked at this and what did they like more, and so what can I help, what do people want to hear about, so what should I kind of learn more about so they can give them more of what they're looking for, how can I help in their learning. And so I'm so addicted to learning that it just swirls around everything I do, and I'm constantly trying to add new learning things to the list, or I try new ideas or go to new events or visit new websites or whatever it is. And I've always noticed that what I want to learn are always the things that I see as like the hardest, shittiest tasks. Those are the ones that I always I'm like, okay, I should learn that. Because those are the ones that I'm like, oh man, I know it takes so much time. And the truth is, though, that it does take time. But the second I start, it goes so fast. Like, the second I remove that and I let it go from my heart and I say, no, the truth is that I can learn this fairly quickly and I'm smart. And if somebody else knows it, then I can know it too.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it's just like, poof, download. And it seems like in certain cases, there are people like I haven't watched all that much of David Wolf. Okay. Or I haven't watched all that much of Daniel Vitalis. I haven't necessarily watched all that much of many people who I fully 100% respect, and I know that what they're telling me is 100% true. And I kind of even know it without them telling me it sometimes. Yeah. Number one, because I can kind of, and I believe that I can connect to that. If somebody knows it, so can I. Without even like having to YouTube it or Google it.
The universal mind, absolutely.
Exactly. But the other thing is that just by being in their presence, I start to like download.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that?
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like you're just like talking to someone and you're just like, and their energy and their knowing is coming into you and you're like, whoa, like that's so cool.
Yes, absolutely. And then we'll start saying similar things, or the conversation will just unravel so perfectly and fluidly. And that's the thing, Mark. This is our design. This is our birthright. We were born with these abilities. It's because we became disconnected from ourselves that we lost them. And the other problem, not necessarily a problem, I mean, I have a very high regard for science because it's taught us a lot. However, some people are using it as a crutch, being like, okay, well, if science doesn't prove it, because science is the almighty, apparently. So if science doesn't prove it, then people won't necessarily like listen to it, and they won't tune into what their body is telling them. Like, for example, you know, what you've just said, I totally resonate with you because I've experienced that for myself. But another person who may not have experienced that or allowed themselves to experience that, or even had the capacity to recognize that that's what's happened to them, would say, oh, well, I need science to show me that exists and that's a possibility, and then I'll believe you. It's interesting. It's interesting that we've kind of geared ourselves like that, and we've gotten out of touch with feeling.
And I get it. And I get why they do it, because I think we've all done it, right? Well, there's always things that we all do it, and some of us are quick to even accept things that maybe aren't true, right? Like, we're very quick to be like, yeah, that's totally right, and then it can go either way. Okay, we can be tricked to some degree too. Yes. But what I find really important with learning is that we seem to always want to learn from the person who we really truly respect and see as a hero. Yes. And that's, to me, why I kind of called Superhero Academy. Yeah. Because I felt that it's not that I'm the hero. It's that I believe that you are a hero. Yes. And I want you to go out and find that hero and learn from what they are and who they are and what they do. And ask yourself the question, what would my hero do? Yep. And then think about what you should do with your day or with your time or with your energy or with what you should learn next, potentially. And so I really want to ask you, and I don't know if you have an answer, but who's your favorite superhero and why? Like and the superhero doesn't need to be like Batman or Spider-Man. It could be like somebody who's living or who's dead. Like, is there someone that you would say has really been a hero, or somebody who you absolutely love and look up to and just has kind of helped inspire your path more and more?
Goodness. I've had so many superheroes. It's hard for me to really pinpoint who exactly. I would say anyone that's really involved with the longevity community, like David Wolf. I can't get enough of him. I really can't. I just admire his way of being. He's just constantly in that holy flow of functioning, and to me, like, that's a superhero. I really admire someone like David R. Hawkins, with all of his teachings about the ego and the self and self-realization. This was a man that really just understood it, really got it, and I don't know, there's a plethora. I don't want to confuse anyone, so I'd have to say that I'll stick with those two for now.
Yeah,
because you never know.
The truth is they change.
Yeah,
they change too. Yeah.
Next week I might come to you and be like, Mark, Madonna is my superhero. Okay, why?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
if dance video, like,
if you can rationalize it, it's the truth, right? It's the truth for you. It's I always say, if I feel, therefore it is to me.
Yep.
If I feel it, no matter what the truth is, it is true to me, and it is clearly governing my life, and that does apply to other people, right? Like, some people have different religious beliefs, okay? So no matter what that belief is, it is true to them, and so therefore it is governing their life, and it is governing their decisions, and it is changing their moral landscape and doing whatever. And so it's not a question of whether or not scientifically their God exists or the other God exists or any God exists.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter.
No, it really doesn't.
Sometimes the scientific version of that does not matter compared to what is the truth within you, and so, people, one of my superheroes, at least, I'll start with Batman, which is, I love Batman because he's just a regular dude. At the end of the day, he has no superpower. The only superpower that he has is an iron will, and like, he uses his energy and time and basically the fortune that he built himself, kind of, to actually do as much possible good as he can, and to protect the lives and the livelihoods of the people in his city and the people around him who he loves. And so that's incredible, and the truth is that Batman, and he says this in his movie, okay, is that anybody could be Batman. Anybody is a superhero, okay? Yes. And that is so true.
I totally believe it. I'm with you on that. And I'm with Batman on that, too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Batman wisdom right there. Hashtag Batman wisdom. No, but I think that's kind of what your message is. I think that's what my message is. And I think that's why we resonate, even though we haven't spoken all that much. And the truth is that we know, because we can feel it, and it's just resonating between us, and it's just happening in that way. And so I really invite people to step into their superheroes. We're coming to the end of this, and I just want people to understand that you are the superhero, and Marina believes in you. I believe in you. The universe believes in you. Just own it and be it, and don't be afraid to acknowledge it. And just, I liked what you said earlier, which is go outside, plant your feet in the grass or in the ground, and just be with yourself and listen to yourself, and listen to your heart and your mind, and you will know what that truth is. And let's just be it. I mean, I don't know how much more it's so hard to explain to somebody, right?
Yeah, just trust it, feel it, believe it, and you will achieve it.
Absolutely. You absolutely will. Like, I don't know, it will just come to you, but you do need to ask yourself the right questions. You do need to kind of, you do owe it to yourself to kind of ask yourself those questions, right?
Absolutely. It's all about asking the right questions. So if somebody wants to follow you or ask you a question, where do they go? I would suggest going to www.marinalove.ca or www.lovemovement.ca.
Oh, I love it. I need to introduce you to somebody whose name is, I don't know if you've ever heard of him, Preston Smiles.
No, he's
Wow.
a smiler?
He totally reminds me of you. He's got like a beautiful energy in that way. He runs something called the Love Mob out in LA, or starting up in LA. And
I'm
anyway,
going to LA next month. Hook a sister up.
I totally will. That's great. I will. And he's Anyway, he's awesome. So yeah. Anyway, so marinalove.ca and or lovemob.com or .ca.
It's a Love Movement.
Love Movement. Sorry, I said Love Mob.
Preston Smiles.
Preston
See, we're
Smiles.
the same person.
There you go. Yeah, lovemovement.ca. Okay, so go check it out. If you have any questions for her, if you have any questions for me, put them in the comment section. I will answer them. Write to Valhalla on our contact page, and I get every single email and I answer every single email. Sometimes they slip through the cracks because they go in my junk mail, but I always look there too. But I promise you, if you send me an email, I will answer it. If you add me on Facebook or whatever, find a way, Ali will answer. I'm sure Marina will do the same.
Of course.
Thank you so much for just for being here. Just for being here and on this podcast, for standing outside, and for spreading your love and your energy and knowledge to the universe.
Oh, thank you. Mirror, mirror, my friend. Mirror.
That's true.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, and don't forget to rate and leave a comment. Until next time, be the hero you've always dreamed of